we talked about the struggles of Tavares and Nylander so far. Has there been anyone else on this team that's been disappointing you with their play?
Yeah, there are some other players I'm disappointed in, but I just wanted to make one quick note on Tavares. So 15 games played, he's got 5 goals. In an 82 game pace, that's 27 goals. Now, 27 goals in today's National Hockey League is hard to do. That's a good player. And ask most fans around the league if they'd be okay with a guy in their team scoring 27 goals, even if he makes whatever amount of money, they'd be okay with it. But the fact of the matter is, John Tavares is the captain. 2 years ago, he scored 47 goals. No, I'm not going to say we expect 47 goals every year, but we expect more than 27. And he makes $11 million a year. He's got to be better than that. Like 27 goals when you have that kind of list behind you of previous accomplishments, the money, and wearing the C, it's not good enough, man. You got to score more than a pace of 27 on 82 game season. As far as disappointment goes in the rest of the lineup, one guy that's really jumped out to me, and it's ironic because when we did I think it was our first show where we talked about expectations of certain players and who's got a lot of pressure on them, I pointed to Jimmy Vesey as a guy who I thought would do really well with this Leafs team, because I thought maybe he would finally find himself in a happy place in the NHL and that there was no real pressure on him. I was also kind of hoping that he'd end up a line and kind of be that third guy and be put with some talent and could benefit from playing with some talent. But it has not happened. I don't know if you have the stats in front of you, what does he have? Like 2 goals, 1 assist or something in the 15 games? And I use the word ghost to describe how Tavares was last night. Jimmy Vesey's a ghost. And looking forward as to where he's going to end up in the Leafs depth. And when I say depth, I mean off the roster. I think if things keep up, I think he may get there, because we look at Nick Patan, who's been making some impact. We look at Boyd, who's like firing around. Like, again, he's not lighting the lamp, but at least you notice him when he's out there. We are going to get Robertson back. Thornton's going to push guys down. So Vesey, in my eyes, again, what are your expectations for a guy making $1 million? But in terms of my expectation and hopes for a guy at the start of the year compared to where I am now, I am quite disappointed at the production he's put up for the Leafs so far.
No, you said it, man. 3 points in 15 games, 2 goals, and he got off to a decent start because he was playing with Tavares and Nylander.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, he actually at first sort of looked like a pretty solid third guy on that line, right? A guy that you can insert into the top 6. But now, kind of going back to, another thing that we discussed on one of those earlier podcasts is that players like this, you kind of did expect them to shuffle down into the bottom 6. Same with Wayne Simmons and Joe Thornton. And I know that we've seen Wayne Simmons have success on that second line. And I know he's out of the lineup with an injury right now. But at the end of the day, I sort of saw all those guys as bottom 6 forwards. But man, Jimmy Vesey, for a guy who was so highly sought after coming out of the NCAA, he goes to the New York Rangers. And it was a team that he really wanted to play for, and it just didn't work out there. Then he goes to the Buffalo Sabres. It was a disaster over there. So he's trying to rebuild his stock, and he's trying to get his career back on track. And I'm sure he looked at the Leafs as a perfect spot, because guess what? Like I just mentioned, the first week of the season, he was playing with Tavares and Nylander, and I'm sure he talked with Kyle Dubas and other front office members. And I'm sure they said, listen, Jimmy, we're going to give you an opportunity to play with some of our talented guys. But clearly that has not worked out. And when you watch Jimmy Vesey out there, the foot speed is non-existent. He's not really generating anything offensively.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a guy, and he's going out there and you're not noticing him. And it's disappointing. But again, it's like also going back to what you said. It's like, what do you really expect from a guy who's making, $1 million, less than $1 million?
Yeah, but at least bring energy. Like, he's not even bringing that. Like, come on, man.
No, you're right. And that's like, I look at a guy like Elia Mccave, right? And even though his numbers haven't been there, and he finally scored his first goal of the season this past week, but you're seeing the speed and you're seeing the tenacity.
Yeah, you notice
the energy. And this dude's like flying around defenders. And, you know, there are moments out there where you're like, holy shit, Elia Mccave is the fastest guy on the ice. You know, the way that he's just able to blow by defenders on the outside. And obviously the finishing hasn't been there, but you like to see him at least generating those chances. You like to see him flying around the ice and getting in the corners and making things happen. But yeah, with Jimmy Vesey, it just really hasn't been there. And you know what? You're just kind of thinking about other guys who have been disappointing. I mean, he probably sticks out the most. I can't really think of anyone on the defense core who I've been disappointed in. I know early in the season, I wasn't really too sure about Zach Bogosian. There's some turnovers in the first couple of games, but he seems to have settled down.
Yeah, he's turned around. Yeah.
But yeah, just thinking about some of the other guys on the roster, and you brought up a good point about John Tavares, where when you're making, $11 million a year, you're the captain of the Leafs. Is it good that you're scoring at a 27 goal pace? Sure, if you were a $5 or $6 million player, but when you're being paid that sort of money and you're being relied upon to consistently bring it night in and night out, I think the Leafs need more from a guy like John Tavares. And we can get into the whole contract thing and did they screw up? Did they jump the gun acquiring him in free agency? Could they have used that money to disperse throughout the lineup? I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Lepore?
On the overall, like, John Tavares contract? And,
let's get into that a little bit.
Well, about the lineup, I'll talk about the lineup first of all. Are all these things kind of webbed together in the way that, okay, so the two higher end players that we're circling as being kind of disappointed in their play are Nylander and Tavares. And then at the same time, we're saying that Marner and Matthews are carrying this team. But then you see, okay, well, who's playing with Marner and Matthews? Zach Hyman. Who's been put with Nylander and Tavares? Like you said, it was Vesey early on. Then we've seen Mccave, who's struggled offensively. So should we let Nylander and Tavares slightly off the hook when we evaluate who has been that third guy they're playing with? In the way that, give them a better player to play with, their numbers would be elevated. And they haven't been terrible. It's that they'd be closer to where their expectations are. And then going even deeper, you have the injuries to Robertson and Thornton. So would that have created a more balanced lineup? Like, again, Thornton was supposed to be on that top line to start. So if you have Thornton, Marner, Matthews, then you have Hyman with Nylander and JT. So then now are we not having that conversation if Hyman's playing with Nylander and JT, because that's now a great line? I mean, that's, again, stuff we can talk about all day, and I'm not prepared to let them off the hook because of what they make and expectations of them regardless. But it's an interesting talking point. With regard to JT, I mean, to sum it all up, no. At the end of the day, when a player like that becomes available, you have to do it. You have to get him, and you can worry about it later. I touched on last week during the Carey Price conversation that we're in a league now where you don't even necessarily evaluate the player. You evaluate his contract and the trades that occur now. You don't trade players, you trade contracts and cap space and that stuff. But unless a team goes completely out of whack with salary or term, when they're picking up a very, very good player, I'm never going to criticize it. And then even then, he's captain. It'd be pretty harsh. It's funny because it'd be pretty harsh for Leafs fans to do this, say 20 years from now, but I wouldn't be surprised either if we look back at a guy who was the captain of the team, who we thought, wow, we shouldn't have even signed that guy in free agency. And then I just thought of Phaneuf, but like that was a trade and a whole different situation and talking point. But with JT, I can't see it getting to that in the way that, I mean, Leafs fans we all have are kind of players that you just say their name and it's kind of like a joke, or every Leaf fan has that kind of row of shame in their closet of Leafs jerseys with certain last names on the back. Like you have the Clarksons, and I got a few. I have a Gustafson, I have a Bernier, But oh yeah, that's an episode. Lepore's wasted money on players that didn't work out jerseys.
Do you have a Phaneuf jersey in that closet?
Phaneuf never made it. Fortunately for me, Phaneuf never made it. But I don't think Tavares will get there. That we'll look back and say, wow, I can't believe we like in the next chapter of the Leafs abomination book. I don't think it'll be the acquisition of John Tavares.
And that's fair, Lepore. But saying that, you brought up a really good point in terms of how, players are thought of nowadays, how they're not even thought about in terms of like how talented they are. It's like, what's their contract look like? And then how talented are they? So when you look at the Montreal Canadiens with Carey Price, like we talked about on the last show, it's like, yeah, we think Carey Price is awesome. 7-game playoff series, giddy up. Give me Carey Price between the pipes. But at the end of the day, the dude's making $10.5 million a year, and you're allocating that money to a position that has shown to be very volatile over the last little while. So when I look at a guy like John Tavares, yeah, would I love to have John Tavares on my team? Is he a really good player at both ends of the ice? Yes, he is. But when you're paying John Tavares $11 million, then things start to get a little bit dicey when you're seeing him score 1 goal in 9 games and 1 even strength goal in 15 games. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's feeling the pressure a little bit. I mean, whenever you're the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, naturally, you're just going to feel a ton of pressure. So I'm sure it's eating away at him that he only has 1 even strength goal. Now,
big time.
Are we going to see some positive regression there? Yeah, absolutely. I think we will. I think he's too good of a player to keep going at a pace like that.